everyone. Oh, it has been 2 weeks since the last show, and we are still drinking. That's right. Oh, I miss you guys. John, Melissa. Oh, John without an H. Jade Kitten, Diane, Tiffany, Shauna, Redman. What's up? All right. So tonight we have a guest. I am excited to talk to this person because he's a friend of mine. I've known him for years, never met in person. But good friend, and he's a smart guy too, so a lot smarter than I am. But first, we do have to go over the rules because it's been 2 weeks. Who knows if you guys have forgotten? I don't know. But rule number 1 is that you are free to ask whatever questions you want. I just might not answer them if I don't like them. But basically, you can ask questions. Oh, and I have to add on to this that Divine Donna is not here tonight. She is in somewhere near North Carolina or like Myrtle Beach. She's on her way to Myrtle Beach on vacation. And in the background tonight, not on screen, but in the background is Tim Vickers from Three Tortured Souls. Let me fix that. I had to mute a microphone. But Tim Vickers is in the background. He's taking care of the comments and the questions tonight. So with every guest that we do have, the first hour, I talk to the guests. We get to know them or know them and go back and forth. And then the second hour is all you guys. You get to ask questions. I put your questions up and we talk about them. Rule number 2 is I don't know everything, but we can learn together. That's what this show is about. It's a learning show, discussion, and drinking show. So all three, I mean, the best of all three worlds. Sometimes my guest doesn't know everything too, so keep that in mind, but we can look it up if we have time. And if not, I will write it down. I got my trusty notepad here. Rule number 3 is that we follow the Patrick Swayze rule here, and that means be nice. If you're in the chat room, you can discuss, debate, you can disagree. That's fine, but don't devolve into name calling or anything like that. For our Russian friends that like to post porn links, you will be booted. Tim has the power tonight, so he will boot your ass. But let's see. What else? We got rule number 4 is if you do have a question, please put a Q in front of it. That helps Tim pick it out and start it so that we can get to it later. And then rule number 5 is my favorite, drink up, because this is a bar. And with that, I am going to put my special guest frame on, and I'm going to bring on my buddy, Rob. What's up? Let me unmute your mic. There you go. What's up, buddy?
Hello. Thanks for having me on, Kenny. Much appreciated.
Anytime.
Hope everybody can understand my accent.
Well, don't worry. They'll get used to it. You know what?
The last time
we spoke, like we actually, I think we Skyped, and I do remember having trouble picking up some of the words, but this time I have no problem. Like the conversation that we had before the show, no problem. So hopefully, how is my accent?
Absolutely no problem, Kenny.
Okay.
Obviously, we're inundated with media from the United States, so we all get used to your accents. Whereas you're not inundated with media from the strange area of the UK that I'm from. So.
Right. It's all good, though. My first question to every guest that I have, and this is to get to know you a little bit. What's your origin story? Who are you? What have you done? Just not like an entire life story, but just a Cliff Notes version. Who is Rob?
So I'm currently a science journalist. I'm freelance at the moment. I've just come off a 9-month stint on the science desk of Newsweek. I'm published on sites like Space, Life Science, Physics World, and that's it. And essentially, I got into that via blogging and what was essentially a debunking blog called Skeptics Boot. That's how I got the passion for writing, and that I kind of parlayed that into a career in journalism. When I'd finished my degree, so that's essentially it.
I love that. I think that's how we met, right? Through the Skeptics book.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think I came across it and I was like, I like this guy. I like this. This is good. You were taking on stories or claims and writing about them and just fully explain. I love the approach. It wasn't just, you guys are wrong. This is silly or nonsense or rubbish. My favorite word now. Rubbish. It was
a lot of love for the word rubbish.
Yes. But it was a good explanation. You did a good breakdown, and I really like that. So you were into paranormal claims. Were you like a ghost hunter, or what got you into that?
No, I've never been a ghost hunter. I've been fascinated by the paranormal since I was a child, like most of us are. But I never quite moved away from that. But what really ground my gears as someone who was interested in the paranormal, it was the claims of the paranormal that were made that were presented with scientific credence.
Yes,
that really started to. When I started to notice that, I became quite fascinated by ghost claims, and and it was around the rise of the ghost hunting show. So it would have been when Most Haunted was most popular, and also the rise of YouTube and like all the faked ghost footage that was popping up on YouTube. And it was when I going from that to the kind of claims that were made with, scientific authority.
Right.
That as someone who was also interested in science, I started to look at them and thought, wait, these claims don't match up. And I think it's a fascinating element of some aspects of the paranormal that people who espouse them will use science as a tool to gain credibility for their paranormal claims. But then when science disproves that claim, they're not interested in science, then they move away. So that's kind of what I was interested in. And I was also interested a lot in the media and the way the media presented ghost and supernatural claims, especially in the United Kingdom, because obviously we've got a kind of tabloid press that sits alongside credible news, whereas in America the tabloid press is kind of considered maybe a few rungs below the credible press. In the UK, the tabloid press kind of sits alongside what we call the broadsheets. So on your newsstand, if you're actually actively looking for news, there's quite a bit of tabloid press there, and you will encounter ghost stories in there. And what stunned me about the kind of ghost stories, paranormal stories that were appearing in the British tabloid press was just how easily debunked they were. And that came as a complete eye-opener for me, and that's what inspired me to start the blog.
I like that. I like how you mentioned about a lot of these groups, and I don't want to really stereotype because not every group does it, but there's definitely a lot, and I know there's a lot here in America where groups really promote that science aspect. They have it in their name, they have it in their description. There's always that tagline of "We use science to prove ghosts exist" or something like that. And I like how you said that they use science until science proves that claim wrong, and then they're no longer interested in science. And I found that once that happens, personal experience, anecdotes take over.
Yeah,
become
that's right.
the science then.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Yeah, the science is just it's a tool to gain credibility, and then it's just completely abandoned. And what's interesting is the way the kind of paranormal hobbyists have they've drawn a lot of scientific elements in, but they've not become any more credible by using them. So, like, you get the instruments that are used incorrectly. The favorite of mine is the laser temperature probes.
Yes.
Which so many groups just don't understand what they're actually measuring when they shine that laser. They're not measuring the temperature where they're stood. They're measuring the temperature of the surface that laser falls upon. And just those scientific trappings that have been brought in, and they're essentially no better than table tipping or a Ouija board because they're just not used correctly.
Right.
And that was a real eye opener for me as somebody who had a passing interest in the paranormal. And when you really start looking into it, these tools that are used by some paranormal investigators, and obviously, again, not to condemn a whole group, because there are many really good investigators out there. Some of these tools they're no different. It's scientific bells and whistles. That's all
Right.
it is.
Yeah, that's really what it looks like. It almost. I mean, I always put the blame on Ghostbusters. Although I love that movie, it's near and dear to my heart. I love it, but that was the really the tipping point where gadgets, handheld gadgets, came onto the scene. It was like, oh, we have a PKE meter, and we can go around and detect ghosts. And I think that mentality is still there, where there are ghost hunters today. They want something that they can carry around. Either you have the full-fledged, like, balls deep investigator ghost hunter guy with the photographer's vest and every pocket is bulging with different gadgets, to somebody with like just a little backpack and they carry around a few things, but it still makes them feel sciencey.
Yeah.
I think that's the big problem. And they don't understand, like you said, they don't understand the actual tool.
Yeah.
And how it works. The IR temperature gun that you described, I mean, that's something that I looked into years ago, and I mean, I still have them. I have a smaller one. I have one of the originals that came out, the big bulky one. But I mean, even that, the laser pointer, there was that misconception, like it just measured where the laser was on the wall. Like it just measured that, and then oh wow, we gotta get you a new mic soon, because there's a lot of static. I don't think you can hear it. There's a lot of static coming in.
No, I can't. Just bear with me a sec.
Okay.
Let's see if I just use my.
Now you're muted. No worries. Everyone drink. Let's see if I can turn this back on for you. I can't turn it back on.
There we
go. Unmute. Oh, there you go. All right, I hear you now.
How is it? Is it any better?
That sounds all right for now. It was just coming in and out.
I mean, I'm really sorry about that, guys.
It's all right.
Apologies.
All right. So with the temperature gun, it actually measures. If you look on the side of the gun, you can actually see it gives you a measurement, a distance to diameter that it measures. Yeah. So if you're pointing that down the hall, you're getting, if you're going like 20, 30 feet down a hallway, you're getting the entire hallway.
Right.
You're not just getting that laser point that's down there. Yeah. And I think that's something that people don't understand when they do it. But other stuff like EMF meters, they've been around for a long time. I know I've seen them at least from the early 90s. And I'm trying to track down exactly where they came from, the origin, but so far nothing. But so you got an interest, you had a passing interest in the paranormal, and you were seeing all these claims, and you said to yourself, "Hey, I'm going to start a blog, and start writing about it." Does anything stand out? Like any any major thing that stand out that you wrote about?
The blog post that got the most attention at first was it was a picture a young school lad in Britain had taken in the fields in Normandy, I think it was, and there was a headless soldier ghost stood amongst the gravestones, and it was simply it was from a ghost tools sheet. It was essentially an action figure that had its head removed, and I think that was the real point where up to then the blog had had maybe a few hundred hits per post, but after that, let me move my phone away because maybe that's causing the interference. Is that any better? Did that help?
So far, I'm not hearing it right now.
Yeah, so that was the first blog post that I wrote that got a lot of attention because that had been a big story in the media, and that's when I kind of hit upon there's a whole culture there within this kind of debunking culture where there are a lot of tools to help people who want to make sense of a story really crack what's actually going on there. So
you said this was an action figure?
Yeah, it was essentially like a G.I. Joe or one of the old style G.I. Joes where,
Okay.
with the eagle eyes and the kung fu grip hands. It's essentially one of those with I'd be very surprised if there isn't one in the background
somewhere around here.
But it was essentially one of those that was on. It was on one of these, tool sheets where you can just add it into the image. The apps.
Oh, okay, all right.
I think it was before the apps. I think it was called Brushes at the time, and you'd use your PC to put them on images. But obviously, there are ghost apps to do that for you now. So it was just one of those stock images. So that was the first kind of post that I did that really, really made me think, well, there's a lot of people actually interested in this stuff and getting an explanation as to what's actually being done. And that was a pretty blatant case of outright hoaxery, really. So, and the amount of times I came across those that had been accepted by the tabloids as just and they were just essentially taken from a sheet or a brush, just a really commonly available app that anyone could get their hands on. The amount of those that I came across in the tabloid press that had just been accepted as a ghost image and put in the papers, it was shocking, really. That one image was just the tip of the iceberg. Once I started looking,
they really had a surge at one point for a good amount of time. They had a surge where you just saw them everywhere. You saw the old guy in the hospital, the person, the little girl in the plaid dress, like she was very popular with no eyes.
She's got her own Facebook page.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then there was one that I actually got sent from MUFON. MUFON investigators sent me a photo from a gentleman that sent it to them. It was a picture he claimed that he took out of his window, his bedroom window, which was, like 14, 15 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I looked at it. As soon as I opened it, I was like, this looks like an app. And it turned out to be an alien app. And I was able to find the right one and send them pictures and say, here's your alien. But yeah, they really had some popularity for a while. And
yeah, they certainly did. And now, from my experience working within the media and for a news organization, I probably can pinpoint why that was happening, because editors will, when they're looking for a story, they will find a source. So it's my suspicion that they had a few eyes on maybe ghost groups on Facebook.
Okay.
And when those images were getting shared, they were sending reporters out to contact
Right.
people via social media and get those images and get the story. Because it's something that I've experienced quite a lot now. Obviously, I didn't do any, ghost stories in that respect. But
Right.
say an image of somebody had snapped an image of one was, a dolphin in a river where it wasn't supposed to be, and we kind of followed people's postings regarding the dolphin and where it had been spotted, and so I can see how those kind of things develop. And obviously then it's just a way of, it's a way of getting an easy story in. The
Right.
kind of pressure
Fluff piece.
Yeah, the kind of pressure that journalists and editors are under, that need to constantly drive content that we have now.
Right.
The internet's a glorious thing, and 24-hour rolling news cycles are a really good thing, but it's not necessarily been easy on news organizations and journalists because there's a constant need for content. And I think that was what was driving that at the time. But like you said, it seems to have been a fad that's died out somewhat now. You don't see it anywhere near as much, or at least I don't.
Right. Yeah. I it's rare that I come across it now. But I think people got used to it. Even those that were really into it and love it, or did love it. I think they got used to the pictures because they were looking at these apps and saying, "Oh, that's right, there it is." And a lot of them, I mean, some of them were really obvious because it was like a color photo and the ghost was black and white, and it was that really stood out, at least to me.
Yeah.
So you have this blog, The Skeptic's Boot. You're debunking a lot of claims. You're putting up good information. And then you decided to really get into science, like really in the science, because you went for physics and astronomy, which physics.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried, and I know Tim's in the background, and I know I'm going to see his head shake. Like, we tried to take an introductory course, and it was like, no, I don't think we made it past the first lesson, or at least I didn't, because of the math involved was just way too much. So what inspired that?
Well, essentially, in the UK, we've got an organization called the Open University, and basically that helps a lot of people who are older go back to university and get degrees. So I started on a science course, and I fully intended to study biology, but your first year, you kind of study all the sciences.
Okay.
And it was during the physics module, because I was terrified of physics because I'm not particularly good at mathematics. So I was absolutely terrified. I thought this is going to be, really hellish. But then actually when I started to do it, I actually found an aptitude for it. And I was much more passionate about it than I was about biology. So that's essentially what started me pursuing that. And I think it was at the end of the physics kind of module where I wrote an essay about special relativity and the twin paradox. And that opened a lot of doors for me. I kind of thought, actually, I could see myself doing this, more long term. So that's but then obviously then you get into your second year and it's not 101 anymore. And then that's when the mathematics fall on you like a ton of bricks. So that is really difficult.
How did you do? I mean, obviously you got your degree, so
I got there in the end. Yeah. The thing with the maths, a lot of it was learning. A lot of it is about learning your own tricks, which is something that I don't think in secondary school over here, which would be junior school in the US, I think you call it, or high school. Okay. Sometimes maths is taught by rote. This is what I'm going over with my kids at the moment, who are 9 and 11. The teachers will teach them the times tables, but with maths, there are little tricks to get you there. You don't necessarily, no two people have to do everything the same way. So, for instance, with times tables, which were always a nightmare for me, the easiest thing to remember is you've got little jumping off points. So, your 2 times tables, your 5 times tables, your 10 times tables. If you know those, you can work towards anything else. So, once you learn that maths doesn't have to be done one set way,
Right.
that you can find your own procedures, you can do pretty much anything. And then for like the equations for physics, it's just a case of remembering the equations and just remembering what to plug in there.
Okay.
And that'll tell you whether you've got a sensible answer or something that's completely wrong. And if it's completely wrong, you know you have to go back to the drawing board. So I got a completely new appreciation for maths while studying physics, because I think during secondary school or high school, my issue with maths was always, well, why am I learning this?
Right.
What's the application? What do I need this for? And studying physics alongside that and studying the maths as a tool to understand the physics really, it gave me that, it answered that question for me. I know why I'm doing it now, but still don't ask me to explain tenses, because that's the hardest part, general relativity. If you're studying physics, you'll normally do that in your last year. General relativity is a nightmare. There's a reason it took Einstein 10 years to progress from special relativity to general relativity. That was really difficult.
I remember, like, I went through high school, and I as you said, I guess that's our secondary school, but math for me, it was you touched on it. You touched on a really good point there. It was because I took geometry and I took trigonometry, and these were not things that I really chose. They were given to me, and I didn't know why. And it was just, here, this is your class, you're going to learn this. And I can recall, like, you said that, and I don't know if it triggered like some false memory that popped into my head. Maybe I just hated math, but I was like, I remember thinking that, like, why am I taking this? I don't understand what the purpose is. I'm learning all this stuff, which I didn't retain anything that I know of, but why? And I guess if I had a reason back then, if they really explained it to me, maybe I'd be more interested in it. You know, if they would have told me, hey, you might be able to unlock the secrets of the universe, I'd be like, shit, yes, let's do this, you know? But now, back then it was just learn it. And when you didn't learn it, you were just punished. And I still didn't understand why, because I didn't want to do it in the first place. But, I mean, I would love to devote some time to that and just at least take an introductory class again and try to get through it too, because I like that. I like how you demonstrated that, or I guess spoke about it, how you gained a new appreciation for math going through it. I mean, that's important because it's hard, and I'm sure everyone in the chat room is like, math, you know, math is hard. But I mean, I'm not one to back down from a challenge, but that kicked my ass. So but I wouldn't mind doing it again.
I started thinking about it almost like a language. It was it was almost like it's the language that physics is spoken in, really. So it was like learning a language. I don't know if that'll help anybody with their approach to it, but that's certainly how I started to view it, and a necessary evil, you know. So
it was part of it, and you had to do it anyway. But I mean, you seem to have done good, because again, you passed. So all right.
I passed it. So there was it was touch and go at points. But,
So you get your degree. You have a degree in physics and astronomy.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. I'm browsing through. I'm going to put your your website up. Let's see. There we go.
Oh yeah, that's my portfolio there.
Yeah, so I'm looking at all your articles, and you deal with a lot of topics, from, let's see, I got exoplanets to black holes to dark matter. I see tachyons. I just see tachyons here. Like I wanted to leave work early today because I usually do like my research when I get home. I research the guest and and go over the stuff, and I was like, I want to leave early because there's some good shit, and I read them when you post them. I go through them, but I wanted to take more notes and really get through it because you touch on a lot of really cool topics. So I guess we'll do like the fanboy kind of question here and say, what's your favorite topic to write about?
So for a long time, it was black holes, which we're at a really exciting point in black hole science now, because we've just captured the first direct image of Sagittarius A star at the center of the Milky Way, which was a tremendous achievement, and a real special moment to get to actually report on that. But I think actually the most exciting area that I'm writing about at the moment are exoplanets. It's almost incomprehensible to think that in the mid 1990s we discovered the first world orbiting another star, and now we have a catalogue of over 4,000 known exoplanets. And once the James Webb Telescope comes online, we're going to, not only is that catalogue going to continue to grow, because we've got some great methods of detecting these planets now, but our investigation of those worlds is going to deepen immensely. Don't think we're quite at the point where we could detect life on other worlds, but we're going to start getting the hints of molecules in the atmospheres of these worlds. And I really believe that our children could be the generation that detects life elsewhere in the Milky Way. And even in a way, even more impressive for me, there was a team at the end of last year who included an amazing researcher called Nia Amara, who believe they've discovered the first planet outside of our galaxy. So if you think about how much that area of study has grown over the past 30 years, we're just so lucky to be where we are now. And I really think that's the burgeoning topic in astronomy and science at the moment. So I love writing about exoplanets. And some of these worlds are so alien. Like, you imagine a world that it's so hot that one side, it's tidally locked, so one side permanently faces its star.
Okay.
And that's so hot that iron vaporizes on that side of the planet. And on the other side of the planet, it's got supersonic winds that push these vapors to the other side of the planet, where it cools and falls as iron rains. It's just, and even it mixes these vapors mix with other chemicals and fall as sapphires. Just how incredible is that? Think of, so it's, for me, a lot of these exoplanets that we're discovering now are really putting the word alien into alien worlds, because they're so unlike anything in the solar system. So I really love writing about any new exoplanet discovery.
So can you, before we go further, can you give an explanation of what an exoplanet is? What defines an exoplanet?
So an exoplanet is essentially, exoplanet short for extrasolar planet. So it's essentially a planet outside the solar system.
Okay.
Orbiting another star. And that's essentially it. Really, it's basically planets in other star systems.
Okay. It doesn't have to, What about the Goldilocks zone? Does that come into play here, or?
I mean, it's certainly a factor of
Okay.
the science behind exoplanets, but an exoplanet doesn't have to be within the Goldilocks zone to be an exoplanet. An exoplanet's basically any. You get so many different types. Like the one I've described would be a hot Jupiter.
Okay.
So hot Jupiters are planets like Jupiter in the solar system that orbit so close to their star that essentially not only are they incredibly hot, but they orbit the star sometimes within a matter of hours. So,
Yeah.
just really incredible stuff. Some of them are so close to the star that the tidal forces of the star are squashing them. So they're like an American football, or just a football, as you guys have called it. So yeah, it's mind-boggling just the variety of planets there are out there.
There's a planet there's planets out there that look like an American football.
They're squashed because of the tidal forces.
That'd be cool to see.
And they're so close to their star that they're just deformed because of that. So that is at the moment, exoplanets are really what I'm excited about. A lot of other stuff, dark energy, dark matter is always great. But, excuse the pun, dark matter seems to have cooled off a little recently. Okay. So I think we're waiting for the next kind of big thing there. But yeah, it's just a wide range of things that really excite me. But exoplanets are definitely the top of the list at the moment.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up, you wrote an article about a year ago, actually a year ago, called "Alien Astronomers on Hundreds of Nearby Exoplanets Could Have Spotted Life on Earth."
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that I just heard something. Let me give you a quote first. You quoted somebody. Let me see. Let me get to the quote, and it says within the 300 light years, there should be about 500 potential habitable worlds. Within 100 light years, you find 29 planets that radio waves will have already washed over. And in the context, it wasn't you that said this; it was somebody else. But in context, it sounded like the radio waves that we have produced have reached them, and it washed over the planet. So if there was life there and they had the technology, perhaps they could pick it up. So something popped into my head, and I remember hearing this. I don't know where I heard it from, but I understand it a little bit. I was wondering about the inverse square law as it pertains to radio waves. At that, we're talking about 100 light years away. And I don't know if you know this, but would that signal be strong enough to actually be received?
Yeah, that's probably the major hindrance with that proposal, that by the time you reach 100, what was the example the researcher gave?
I think it was 100 light years away. There was 29 planets. Yeah.
I mean, would it be too faint to even recognize as an actual radio signal? I mean, it's possible because these signals, they don't necessarily ever die. It's electromagnetic radiation all the same. And if you look at the kind of radio waves that we're picking up and the distances that we're picking those up from, I mean, one fascinating topic of fast radio bursts, which we don't actually know what the actual origin of those are. So if you look at the way radio astronomy has developed here on Earth, and it's quite possible that if a civilization similar to ours had our kind of technology, that it would only take one signal. They wouldn't have to catch much more. It would only take one signal. The major problem for me would be the vastness of the universe and the chance of catching that one signal would be diminishingly small, because you'd probably have to have your radio antenna pointed right at it,
right,
to kind of pick it up. You'd have to get it head on, maybe,
and it had to be pointed. Yeah, if the planet was rotating and it was rotated away from us, it would never pick up by the time that the signal washed over. Am I right there? Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me of something that I've just written, and it's actually not published yet. We've actually discovered the slowest rotating neutron star that we've ever found. I can mention it because it's not embargoed, but it's not published yet. So I've interviewed the researchers who were behind this discovery. So basically, neutron stars are what happens when massive stars collapse, and you end up with matter so dense that just a single teaspoon of it would weigh. It's essentially the mass of our sun crushed into the size of a city. That's a neutron star. When they spin, because they're magnetic, they drag particles along with them, and from their poles, they launch radio bursts. Now, what these researchers have discovered is the slowest spinning neutron star we've ever discovered, and it might be an entirely different class of neutron star, because its period is, it completes a full rotation in 76 seconds. Now imagine that's the slowest we've ever found.
Slowest. I'm like, all right.
Now, the way they caught that was through the radio waves, but it was complete chance, because we just so happened to have a piece of technology pointed at it for the split second that radio pulse hit us. And then that alerts us there's something in the sky there. Let's investigate that further, where they picked up further pulses. So a lot of astronomy, while I don't like to say luck, a lot of it is good fortune. Where the knowledge comes in is for astronomers who are trained to recognize what they've seen and what they've spotted. And that's where the brilliance of astronomers comes in, to take one pulse and to not go to write it off, to go, actually, this is something for deeper investigation. And who knows? I mean, I found that story that you referenced, I found it fascinating, because the reason I liked it as a story, I think I did that for Newsweek. Is that? Oh no, it was Physics World I did that for. The reason I found that so fascinating was it was almost turning the lens the other way around, and it made me think, because I like to write about stories that make me think too, because if they make me think, I think they'll make the reader think as well. And what I liked about that was it changed my perspective, because we live in a very, even though we've well established that Earth is not the center of the universe, to us it is. It's still the center of our universe.
Right.
And we very much think of ourselves as looking out on the universe. And what that made me, it showed a different perspective. It made me think, well, the universe is also looking in on us too. And if there are, as heated as our search for life is elsewhere, there may be other civilizations that are equally engaged in such searches. And what's fascinating about the nature of electromagnetic radiation, like radio waves and light, the way it travels is, we may be long gone when some radio signal from our planet is discovered on some extremely distant world. Our civilization may have crumbled, our solar system may be gone, but that lingering, that just one radio signal, that just one great technological achievement has been picked up by somebody. There's a record of us there. There's an electromagnetic signal that this was us, this was humanity for this brief time. And I just think that's fascinating that, it's almost like a cosmic legacy. Now, may never be detected. There may not be other civilizations. There may, as difficult as it is for me to imagine, our civilization may be the only one. There may never be another, and in the entire vastness of cosmic history and the universe, there may never be another civilization, as difficult as that is for me to believe, that's technologically advanced enough to pick up that signal. But if there is, there's a chance that our legacy might live on, just via that.
It's almost like as you're talking about it and describing this, I'm thinking that's our ghost. That's our ghost in the universe, because it's out there, and like 100, 200, 500 years or 1,000 years from now, somebody might pick up that signal and say, oh, look at this, we have something. And piggybacking on what you said earlier is that, like, you didn't want to call it like luck, but it is I don't think it's luck, but it's when you look up in the sky, it is so vast. And we're talking about distances that if you move your radio telescope like a micrometer in any direction, you're talking light years difference when it's out there. So it's amazing. It's so mind-boggling. It hurts my brain, but I love doing it, thinking about these distances and how far something might be, and civilizations that might be out there. And I agree with you. It's very hard to accept that possibility that there is nothing out there, you know, and we're the only civilization that has evolved and rose up. I'm hoping that there's others out there, and that they're not, the evil stuff that we see in movies that just want to come and take us out.
Well, I think it's Stephen Hawking who said that we should be very wary of actually making contact with another civilization, because if you look at a lot of our progress in space exploration, a lot of that has been connected to military development. And I think Hawking's suggestion was that any civilization that was so advanced in terms of space technology that they could reach us would probably be quite militaristic themselves. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but it's an interesting thought, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you think about, like, even though, and I know some of the people in the chat room are going to be like, what? I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I also grew up watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that was like, the Enterprise was a science vessel.
Yeah.
It was an exploration vessel. It was not a military vessel, but it went out to explore and find new worlds. I mean, it literally says it in the opening credits. And that's what I would hope that we would become, not a military civilization that goes out and conquers all their worlds. I mean, I don't think that would be us anyway.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not.
I mean, that's if the scientists were in charge, isn't it?
But I would hope that any civilization that did have the technology, if they did, that could reach us, and that's a big if, because I know, like, at least with our current technology, that's a big leap, huge leap. And we've talked about this on the show, and on our Saturday show, we've talked about that a lot. But I would hope that if they did come here, it was more of a science-based civilization that was like, we're here to explore. We found you. We're reaching out. Let's, maybe open trade routes and learn from each other. That would be perfect. But then images of Independence Day keep popping in my head, shit like that.
See, I mean, the vastness of the universe, it's a two-way street as well, because as much as that inspires thought of, what other civilizations could be out there, it also kind of destroys I'd love to think that we were already being visited by, different civilizations, but it kind of destroys that for me because I know how vast space is and how unlikely that actually is
Right.
to be happening. So I think the vastness of space and the vastness of time as well, because if even our existence as humans, not just our lifespan, is such a tiny pinprick in the vastness of like a 13.8 billion year old universe, that would it even be too much of a coincidence for two civilizations on the opposite side of a galaxy to exist at the same time? And that's kind of what it's always a bit of a downer, because it's like you get enthusiastic about these ideas about civilization, but then you remember just how small we are in the universe, and it's just, and like that element of good fortune, and we just happen to have our radio telescopes pointed in the right direction at the right time to get this signal, and it just shows you how vast space is, and just, would we even be noticed? Would we be seen? Would this tiny little planet, in the habitable zone around a pretty average star, ever even get noticed? So
Right.
but it's fun to think about.
Yeah. I mean, these are definitely like enthusiastic and Wonderlust kind of dreams, where it's like, yeah, I really hope we make contact. I would love to make contact with a different civilization in my lifetime. That would just be amazing, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
No,
just because exactly what you said, it's like, when you start thinking about it, it's like, there's a lot of space in between us. So I don't think it's going to happen. We got about 8 minutes before we do our break, which is halfway through. How you holding up? I know it's late. It's like 1, almost 2, right? Over there.
Wait. 7 minutes to 2. I'm quite fine.
Okay, good.
Quite happy to talk about science.
Awesome. So I have a question about black holes, and I know you've written about them, and I've seen the images. I've seen the first image we've ever gotten of a black hole. I saw the recent image of our black hole. Is it I guess, I don't know if this is a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's my show. A black hole, is it a sphere, or is it actually like on one plane?
No, it would be the so what you'd be talking about would be the outer
the
rim of the black hole, which would be the event horizon.
Yeah.
So that would be a sphere. That'd be spherical, because the event horizon is at a certain distance called the Schwarzschild radius from like the central singularity of a black hole. So that radius would kind of go all the way around. So it would be spherical. So the answer is
Okay. So when we see these images, I guess I'm confused, because I see them and I'm like, all right, that's really cool, and I'm excited about it because it's like first, and I understand photography, so I understand, like, this is not a snapshot. This is not a 1/60th of a second snapshot. It's completely impossible to do, and it's built up, and I think like terabytes of information.
It is
that come to form this one image. So I don't know if you know this, but are they blocking out the light? I don't know how to put this. I don't know how to put this question, because I see the event horizon. I see the light going around it, but I don't see the light in front of it. Like, we do see a black hole. We see a hole in the middle. Why are we seeing that hole and not the light in front of it?
With the black hole from the galaxy M87, and with our central black hole as well, we're actually quite fortunate that they're actually kind of face on to us.
Okay.
So we're kind of, and the because of the angular momentum of the gas and and stuff around a black hole, gas and dust. It's a flattened disk. So while the black hole's kind of this sphere, it's not evenly surrounded by, because that glowing ring, that's the what you see in there is the matter, the gas accelerating around the black hole. The black hole's actually the blackness in the center of that. So that's the gas and dust that's being accelerated at like near light speeds.
Okay.
So if you compare the M87 black hole to Sagittarius A star, you'll notice that Sagittarius A star seems a little more flattened. Now I'm not 100% sure this is why, but I imagine that's because of the kind of angle that we're seeing it. So that's M87, the main image.
The main image here. Okay.
Yeah. So if you look, the central dark part, that's the black hole. This glowing ring is kind of the gas accelerated to near light speeds around that black hole.
Okay.
Whereas with ours, which is that one, yeah, that's it. There. So that one, yeah, brilliant.
This one.
Just on it.
Okay.
No, next one.
Oh,
Along
that one.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bit more flattened. So it's angled a little bit.
Okay.
So that the black hole's kind of in the center there. And obviously it's not quite as sharp.
Right.
Because the thing about our black hole, the reason a lot of people have been asking me about the black hole image is why we imaged M87, which is thousands of light years away, before we imaged the black hole at the center of the Milky Way, which is obviously much closer.
Okay.
Now, the reason for that is a lot of people are saying it's gas and dust in between, essentially gas and dust of the disk of the Milky Way, obscuring our view of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. And that's part of it. But the main reason is our black hole is much smaller. Now, that means that the gas and dust that's circling around it is still moving at light speed. So it's moving as fast as the gas and dust around M87. But because M87 is so much bigger, it takes much longer
to get around,
to make a complete loop. So that means that the speed that the gas and dust is orbiting around Sagittarius A star is quicker than an observation period. So that's why it's been much more difficult to capture an image of M87, Sagittarius A star rather than M87. Just because of how quickly that gas makes it all the way around. So
this is on par with if you take a long exposure photograph of two people and one person is walking around in a circle and then another person is running around in a circle, you're going to get a much fainter blur of the runner.
I imagine it's the same principle. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But I imagine that's the same principle. That's how it was put to me. It's kind of like trying to capture the image of a running child.
Okay.
So that is the reason why we caught this black hole that's much further away before we caught our own central black hole.
Okay. Awesome. All right. We are at the hour mark, so we're going to take our break. We have let me see. Where is it? We have a 3-minute commercial. So once we go to commercial, you got 3 minutes to get back here. So if everyone in the chat room, you can empty your bladders and fill up your cups. That's what I'm going to do. And we will meet back here in 3 minutes. If you have questions, I know we got a few. Tim's been awesome in the background. He's been starring the questions, so we have a bunch. But if you have a question, this is the time. Put it up. Remember to put a Q in front of it so that we can pick it out. And then the second hour is all questions, all you guys. So we will ask your questions. I will just voice them, and Rob will be put on the spot and answer all your questions. All right. So here we go. We're going to go to commercial in 3, 2, 1.
Do satanic cults lurk in the shadows? Can memories of satanic ritual abuse be repressed? Do exorcisms really drive out demons? And are those demons always possessing Zach Baggins? I'm JD Sword, the Satanic Skeptic. Join me on The Devil in the Details as I examine these questions and more, bringing a skeptical and satanic perspective to the paranormal. The Devil in the Details, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and more.
Japan for us. Japan for us. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. 3 Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific.
3 Tortured Souls.
All right, man, we're back. You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, we got some questions. I'm gonna get to some of these. So again, if you have a question, put a Q up, put it up on the chat room, put a Q in front of it. That way, Tim can pick it out and start for me. But the first question we have is Kenny, you promised us to tell us what your project was when you got back. Pray tell, Old English. I'm very interested in what it was. I'll have to save that for next week. My project. Oh, well, all right. So I'll say, since you're so disappointed and you're our special guest, the project wasn't that big of a deal. I went to Vegas last weekend, and it was for Ben Radford's birthday party. Ben Radford is my editor. He is the deputy editor of Skeptical Inquirer magazine. He's a good friend of mine. I have not met him in person in like 15 years. We met once. We've talked like a million times, but we've never actually got together and hung out. So I went out to Vegas. I flew out to Vegas for the weekend for his COVID delayed 50th birthday, which is 2 years later. And we spent 3 days together hanging out with a bunch of other people, and we had a great time. That was my secret project for this weekend. And and we were able to get into Zach Baggins' museum, even though I had it on good authority from former employees that I was officially banned from the museum. I was not allowed in. That there was a warning or something with my picture in the main lobby, behind like where the employee that takes your money and stuff like that. Yeah. So the idea was Ben wanted to see if we could get in, and I was like, all right, you know what? I mean, I'm game. Let's see it. Let's see if we can get in. But I did know from the previous experience that they check ID there. So you have to fill out a waiver and then sign a waiver and then show your ID and they compare it. So I was kind of like, if this is a bust, if I get kicked out, you know, I really don't want to be out $50 because it was $50 to get in. And you guys are going to still take a tour and I got to walk back to the hotel. So, but Ben covered my ticket and we got there. They never checked my ID. So,
that's great.
And I wanted, as we're in line, Zach comes out the front door.
Oh no!
And he walks right past me. I was probably within 6 feet of him.
Wow.
And my first observation, he's little. He's a tiny person.
Really?
He's very little. I thought he was big, but again, I've only seen on TV. No, he's little. Second thing was that he was in his like uniform. Like, I guess he wears all black when he does his show now. And he was in that same attire except for his hat. So when he came out, he stopped right next to us and changed his hat because his hat was different. And he got on his all black hat and he kind of looked at us. But the most of our group, which I think there was 12 of us, 10 of us were all skeptics.
Yeah.
No one paid attention to him. And he was like, I think he was actually hurt that no one like squealed, no one went crazy about him, and he kind of just walked by us and turned around and looked like, I can't believe no one said anything. It's like, we're skeptics, dude. You're a douchebag. We don't.
You're not impressive.
Yeah, we're not impressed by you at all. So yeah, we took the tour, and I think we are actually going to be on another podcast, Squaring the Strange with Ben Radford.
Ben Radford's.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that. Me and Susan Gerbic, because Susan was there with me.
Oh, Susan there as well.
Yeah. Susan was there, and we had gone through the first time. The first time I went through, Susan was with me. So we're going to give an update and talk about all that. That whole adventure. So that was so much fun.
Oh, that is good. Yeah.
All right. Next question. Rob Palmer. What's up, Rob? What if it's a rogue planet? I think Rob was posting questions as we were talking. So can you tell what's a rogue planet?
So a rogue planet would be a planet that's not associated with a star. So there are planets that are kind of they'll be thrown out of the they'll be thrown out of orbit around their star or from a binary system by some kind of interaction, like a gravitational perturbance could throw them out of orbit around their star. So what they end up doing is they end up wandering the galaxy essentially on their own. Now, the difficulty is with spotting rogue planets is a lot of our detection methods for spotting planets revolve around the effect that they have on their star. So, for instance, we can detect
that's a transit,
kind of
right?
Yeah. The transit method is when a star passes in front, a planet passes in front of the face of its star. It just causes a tiny little dip in the light signature of that star. I mean, a really infinitesimal dip, which shows how sensitive our measuring equipment is to spot such a tiny effect. There's also We can also use the Doppler effect to spot wobbles. Because a planet and a star, you think of the planet orbiting the star, but what's actually happening is both are orbiting a point of mutual gravity.
Okay.
So now normally that's deep within the star, but it's not at the star's center. So if a planet's orbiting a star, what it causes is a tiny little wobble in that star, which you know about the Doppler shift and how that changes the frequency of light. We can see those tiny little frequency changes that are caused by a wobble caused by a planet. And we can even infer the kind of size and mass of that planet. Very few exoplanets we spot directly. We have spotted a few, but it's very rare. Those two methods are the most successful exoplanet detection methods. So the difficulty with a rogue planet is it's not associated with a star. So it's incredibly difficult to spot. But we have inferred quite a few. I think the last one I wrote about just happened to pass it in front of another star. And there's another technique called gravitational lensing. So basically, any object with mass causes a bend in the fabric of space-time. That's Einstein's theory of general relativity. The most common analogy is thinking of balls of different masses placed onto a stretched rubber sheet. Think of a black hole as like a bowling ball causing this major curvature. But even a planet causes a curvature, which if it passes in front of a light source, the alteration of that light source of where it appears in the sky as to where it actually is, because its light's been bent, so it causes a shift in position. You can infer that an object of mass has passed in front. So we can use gravitational lensing to spot them. But obviously, spotting a rogue planet because it's not associated with a parent star is extremely difficult. Sometimes, to use colourful language, I'll call them orphan planets because obviously they're left to kind of wander the galaxy alone like a child in a supermarket who's got separated from their parents. So
as you're explaining it, all I'm thinking is like, all right, this is what might have happened to the Death Star when it got damaged so much, it might have just went off on its own. And if it didn't crash into a planet, it just keeps going. It's wandering around. So it's a big ass, like comet almost? It's not really a comet, but it's
it wouldn't be a comet. It's just literally a planet. It's a planet. Just wandering
around.
But follow me on Twitter. Monday, I'll give you a more exciting wandering orphan than a planet.
Now I'm excited. That's the kind of thing. Like,
can't say anything else until Monday.
I mean, it's the rogue planet idea is just, I love that. It's like, let's find one that's close, colonize it, and just ride around the universe. But you can't do that.
It's going to be pretty cold.
Yeah,
because
cold. Yeah. It's just, I love that. That's a great science fiction idea. That's just, I love it. All right.
Yeah, it is a good science fiction idea. Yeah.
All right. Let me see here. Next question. It's still from Rob. I think it's a follow-up. Is that still considered?
It would still be an exoplanet. Yeah. If it's outside the solar system, it'd still be an exoplanet.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. Okay. Next question here, John without an H. Big crunch, big rip, or big freeze? Which camp are you in? I don't know what this means.
So what John's talking about is the potential end of the universe.
Oh,
so at the moment, the universe is expanding, but it's not just expanding. It's expanding at an accelerated rate. So, that is, we call whatever is causing that effect dark energy. Dark energy is kind of a placeholder for whatever is causing that accelerated expansion of the universe. Now, obviously, the fact that to think about it like this, this is how crazy the idea of dark energy is. Imagine you take a child to the park and you're on the swings and you're pushing that child and you're putting that energy in. That's like the Big Bang. That's like the acceleration at the universe at the Big Bang. That period of rapid inflation of the universe growing, becoming less dense, cooling.
Okay.
Now imagine you stop pushing the child and you let it slow. That's what happened after the Big Bang. The expansion of the universe stopped or slowed considerably. Then suddenly you don't put your hands on that child. It starts swinging again and speeding up more and more rapidly. That's how revolutionary the idea of the accelerated expansion of the universe was to cosmologists in 1998 when it was first discovered, because there is something that's speeding up the acceleration of the universe. Now, obviously, that's led us to speculate what happens at the end. Big Crunch, I think, is referring to the fact, does it
come back,
reach such a size that it eventually rebounds, and we suddenly get a not just a deceleration of that expansion, but it starts coming back in on itself. Big Rip, I'm not 100% familiar with. I imagine that would be the idea that space-time itself starts to tear apart. And Big Freeze is just probably the most mundane of all of them, that the universe just continues until it reaches a state where obviously it's cooling as it expands, and it just reaches a state where, all kind of molecular movement will cease. It's just cold and everything dies. I'm going to suggest a third. I'm in Big Bounce. So maybe the universe contracts and then undergoes another period of rapid expansion. And maybe that's been going on for a long time. I'm not 100% sure of the scientific evidence behind it, but I just like it because it's the underdog theory. So I support the underdog. So come on, Big Bounce. So we get that expansion. It reaches a point, comes back on itself, then repeats.
So what do you? Let me ask you. I'm gonna jump in here. What are your thoughts of what is the universe expanding into, if not space?
Isn't that's an interesting idea, isn't it? I've been there's the idea of multiverses.
Oh,
where our universe is part of this cosmic foam. It's a bubble within this cosmic foam. And there are other bubbles, some of which just don't have the right laws of physics to grow. Others that have got, like us, ideal physics and they can grow. I would say it's a difficult question because it's a really metaphysical question. But if we were growing it into anything, then possibly this kind of cosmic foam that contains these other bubbles of other universes. I know that's a theory supported by Fred Adams, a few other theorists. But I think with the idea of multiverses quite hot at the moment, thanks to Marvel and a few other franchises, it's a really fascinating idea that there are other universes. And I love the idea that what Fred Adams posits is some of these other universes might have completely different laws of physics, some which might not allow them to ever form matter or planets or anything like that, but that our universe has just the right laws of physics to allow higher order structure to begin to develop. So, I mean, I'd have to answer that. Who knows? But there are theories out there that suggest maybe there's something structurally beyond the universe as well.
So I'm totally gonna make a T-shirt that says, "All my knowledge of the multiverse I learned from Marvel," because
Yeah.
that's, and you know what? Every time I have a conversation like this with people, and it's not an intellectual conversation, it's just a casual one. Yes.
How dare you? Go in.
Well, I try to have an intellectual conversation, but some people start bringing in aspects of Marvel movies, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, stop it.
Mm.
But
It's
yeah,
see the interesting thing about the Marvel films is obviously they've hit upon this term multiverse,
Mhm.
and it's something that dates back in comics a long time. I'm going to be a comic nerd for 2 minutes now. So obviously DC Comics were the first people to kind of introduce the idea of a multiverse, because you had, when they introduced the Flash again in the Silver Age,
right.
you know, Barry Allen could vibrate his molecules at different speeds and travel to these alternate Earths that were kind of vibrating at different rates, and they could all exist side by side.
Right.
Now, the idea of a multiverse as we see it isn't really like, you know, it presented in films and in comic books, and on Star Trek, the Mirror Universe is one of the most famous examples.
That was good. Yeah, that was good.
It's actually more like, what they present is less like a multiverse, and it's more like the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. Because with a multiverse, there wouldn't be a different version of Kenny Biddle in that multiverse. It'd be unlikely. But with the many worlds hypothesis of quantum physics, there'd be an almost infinite version of Kenny Biddle. As terrifying as that is to the paranormal, an infinite wave of Kenny Biddles coming at you shouting about infrared thermometers.
Rubbish.
So, rubbish, lots of rubbish. That's a lot of rubbish. But so the multiverse, the way it's presented in like Marvel and other places, is more like the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics, because there's lots of different versions of you. So there'd be these points where universes kind of split off from each other. And obviously the many worlds interpretation is, you know, an electron could take an infinite number of paths from an electron gun to a target, and each of those paths represents a world, a different world, where the electron took a different path. Right. Or, you know, the famous example of Schrodinger's cat. So in the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics, Schrodinger's cat is both dead and alive. Because you know Schrodinger's cat's placed in a box, vial of poison with an atom. If the atom decays, the poison's released. If it doesn't, the poison isn't. If the poison's released, the cat's dead. If it isn't, it's alive. If that's a quantum system, then the cat is both dead and alive at the same time in the Copenhagen interpretation, until someone opens the box and measures the experiment, and then the wave function collapses, the superposition's destroyed, and the cat's either dead or alive. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics, the experimenter opens the box, and what he's actually discovering is, he's discovering if he exists in a universe where the cat is dead or a universe where the cat is alive. They've split. So that's more like the Marvel multiverse is kind of more like that. And the DC multiverse, that kind of, there's been, but obviously the decisions that we tend to see portrayed are much larger in scale than, you know, the path of an electron, or,
right,
you know, because the difficulty with the many worlds interpretation, or the reason a lot of people find it unsatisfactory, is every time someone switched on a light, that would create billions of universes. So that's the problem, is that idea that there'd be this infinite growth in universes from every every conceivable thing that happens. But it's fun to speculate about, and
Right.
that even though they've given those kind of branching universes the term the multiverse, what it actually is more like is the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics.
Okay. Good question, John, without an H. That really sparked a good
How did we get to that?
I don't know. But let's move on. That was good. All right, Jeff AF, what's up, buddy? Since light can be bent and travel by the gravity of a star near the path towards us, might radio waves also be bent by stars to change its estimated origin?
Yeah, definitely. It's just electromagnetic radiation, so exactly the same principle. And we've talked about that idea about gravitational lensing. So yeah, definitely, Jeff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, next we have a long one here. What is your opinion on the multiple universe? I think we might have.
I think I'm living in one.
Yeah. And if you believe in them, do you think they are mirror universes or completely different from ours, including completely different law? Yeah, I think we covered a lot of this. But
so they'd have completely different laws if it was the cosmological version of all these different universes growing in the foam. If it was the quantum version, the many worlds, then they'd have the same laws of physics as ours. Each one would just have these tiny minor changes, like right down on a subatomic level. So yeah,
I'm still liking the idea of like many Kenny Biddles. I like that idea because I get so much work done.
Yeah.
All right.
You'd all battle each other though. There'd be like this massive battle to be the ultimate debunker. I don't think you'd get on. I don't think you'd get on with other versions of yourself. Then there'd be an evil one who's actually a paranormal investigator.
That would be the mirror
yeah,
version with,
with no beard.
Oh, all right. John's question here: what are some hypotheses to what the great attractor is?
Oh, I'm not 100% sure what he means by the great attractor. So I could only speculate. I don't know. Perhaps he means, something that galaxies revolve around. But no, sorry, John, not 100% sure, mate. There.
All right. So give us some more clarification there, John, and then we can get back to that question. I'm going to leave it up there, or I'm going to leave it starred so we can come back to it. Redman, what's up, buddy? Rob, have you ever gone ghost hunting?
I haven't. When I was doing the Skeptics Boot blog, I was meant to be going on a ghost hunt, and they found out who I was, and the offers to let me accompany them just completely dried up.
Really?
I passed my blog along to one who I thought I could trust. They assured me they had an open mind and they welcomed skeptics, but as soon as they found out I was a skeptic and that I was a blogger, I think it was more the blogger part that scared them. Right. Just the offers dried up, and it's a difficult one. I always found it difficult because challenging people on their beliefs in their home turf, it's something that you've got to be quite good to do that. And I felt if I started going on a lot of ghost hunts, I'd kind of be almost part of the machine and be influencing what they do from the inside. And I didn't think that I was a person with the temperament to do that. And I felt like I'd end up going and being a naysayer a little bit too much. Okay. And maybe as much as I think ideas like that should be challenged, I think I see ghost hunting as LARPing, really. It's live action role play. It's the same to me as the kind of people who indulge in, they'll dress up and reenact a historic war,
I
or
do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that they're similar, and I do think that a lot of people go. I imagine when you do that, Kenny, like you want to kind of get lost in what's happening. It's a great time, and you want to enjoy that and kind of feel, the reality of it. And I think that's a lot for ghost hunters. And I think me going along would have been the wrong kind of challenge, if that makes sense. It would have been, it would have been me like the party pooper. Now
Right.
that doesn't mean that I don't think skeptics can go along and challenge those ideas in a productive and building way that actually improves the experience. And it doesn't mean that I don't think skeptics should go along on ghost hunts. I just thought I'd be the wrong person to do it. But I did mull over the idea, and I did try and get on one. But like I say, when they closed ranks and all the offers have come along, we'll talk to you, all those offers began to be rescinded.
Mhm.
I kind of felt a bit. I felt like I'd intruded on something a little bit, and I don't think I was the right person to pursue that. But again, that doesn't mean that I think all people shouldn't. I just don't think
That's
I
fair.
was the right person to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. Completely fair, because not everyone is up to it, and when I do it, it's completely open. Like I don't hide the fact that I'm more of a skeptical person.
Yeah.
And I go in because I faced a similar challenge, because when I started doing a video series for Skeptical Inquirer, like one of the things I wanted to do, one of the projects I wanted to do was go along on a ghost hunt. I wanted to film the entire time. And I put it out there. I just put it out there on social media and asked people if they would be willing. And I had some people contact me and say, yes, we're up for it. But when they went back to their team, it was a flat out no.
Yeah.
And they were worried about what I would present, which is, I get it, but I also question that, because if you're doing work that you believe in, what's the hesitation?
Yeah.
Why are you so scared of someone like me coming in? Because I'm not trying to be mean, although I'm sure I do come across that way to some people. But eventually I did find somebody that invited me in, and they knew full well what I was going to do. And I'll also add that I completed the video, but before I published it, I did talk to the person that was involved. I did talk to the person that owned the building, the house that we went into. I talked to them and explained exactly what I was going to present, and they were fine with it. And that's one of the things that I think people need to understand, that we're not like, I don't think you are. I don't think you're an asshole. So I don't think you're going to go and just, you and me both. But I don't think you're going in there specifically to point fingers and make fun of people. And
no, definitely wouldn't. No.
And
making fun would have been the last,
right.
The last thing. Obviously, you go and do something. I mean, it's interesting you say about meanness, and there's this debate: can you ever challenge someone's beliefs and not be, not come across as mean? But then that's not a reason not to challenge beliefs.
Right.
We should be challenging beliefs. It's absolutely what we should be doing. And it's the job of a skeptic to listen to beliefs and challenge them, especially our own, which, I'll probably foul it up, but a famous quote by Richard Feynman with regards to investigating science was, remember that you're the easiest person to fool.
We are, yeah.
And it's about challenging your own beliefs as well. And that was part of my idea about going on a ghost hunt, was to see the other side, to actually be with the people. And while I never thought for a second it'd make me believe in ghosts, I wanted to understand ghost hunters a little bit better. But that didn't come off, and I decided it just wasn't for me. But like I say, I'm glad there are skeptics out there who are doing it. And obviously there are, the example I always think of is Hayley Stevens in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
She was she was part of a ghost hunting team, and she moved into, I don't think she'd necessarily call herself a skeptic, but that kind of skeptical investigation, she moved into that from ghost hunting. So she kind of came from the other side. So I think any team that doesn't have a skeptic in it, a real skeptic, is letting themselves down, and they're definitely not doing science. Right. Unless there's somebody in that team who walks in with no gadgets, just with a pen, a piece of paper, a tape measure, and a torch. There's not, because they're the essential scientific pieces of equipment that probably every ghost hunter needs. But I just think I'm glad there's skeptics out there doing it. It just wasn't for me.
Cool. All right. I think John Michael has some clarification here. Wikipedia can explain the Great Attractor better than me. It seems like an area of space that is millions of times more massive than the Milky Way, that all the galaxies around us are heading towards, but it's obscured by our own galaxy, so we can't see it.
Well, that's it's not something that I'd heard the term before, but I've never really wrote anything about it or researched it. So that's pretty much a new one on me, John. I haven't come across much research about that really for some reason, which I would have thought would be a hot area of research, but
right.
No, not terribly familiar with it, John. It's a fascinating concept, though, and obviously, what would be at the center of this massive gap, because interstellar space is quite interesting, and that's what it'd be. It'd be this large region of intergalactic space. But as for what's there, I could only speculate.
Cool.
Sorry, right, John, that's not a great answer. So sorry about that.
No worries. Let's see. Next question. Redman, Rob, have you... Oh, wait, we did that one. Never mind. The rogue planet is free of a star gravity field, but it will be locked into the gravity or galaxy gravity field. I guess this is a question.
The interesting thing about the gravity of the galaxy, though, is obviously... gravity's an inverse square law. So there's lots of inverse square laws in physics, but gravity's probably the most famous one. So the rogue planet would probably feel the gravity of all the other bodies in the galaxy, and it would have an influence on it. And I imagine it would keep it within the galaxy. But again, galaxies are so vast. How far could a rogue planet get before it kind of could escape? I imagine that rogue planets, if you looked at their overall movement, they'd be kind of rotating with everything else in the galaxy. So they'd be kind of rotating around that central black hole in the same direction. Yeah, so I imagine it's locked into the galaxy's gravity in that respect. Yeah. Okay. I mean, it'd be lovely to see something actually happen with a rogue planet, the kind of effect they have on star systems as they go past and maybe disrupt another planetary system's gravity. Yeah. That'd be something that'd be really interesting to see.
All right, moving on. We got another question for Jeff. So your thoughts on the discovered white hole? Might be a black hole of a different universe. I
wasn't aware we'd discovered a white hole. White hole. I believe white holes are theoretically posited to be believed to be the other end of a black hole. I know there. See, it's funny because white holes are kind of we've got lots of general relativity, lots of things emerged from the mathematics of general relativity.
Okay.
So black holes first emerged from the mathematics of general relativity. We discovered those. Gravitational waves emerged from that mathematics. We discovered those, and kind of we're looking at wormholes and white holes are probably, they're predicted, they're allowed, but just because they're allowed doesn't mean they actually exist. But I believe, unless I'm wrong, that a black hole would be one entrance to, and you'd have something called an Einstein-Rosen bridge.
Okay.
Yeah, between the two, and kind of the matter that goes into a black hole kind of is deposited out of the white hole or exists at the white hole at the other end of that bridge. And those could be bridges between galaxies. But as far as I'm aware, that's highly hypothetical. If we've discovered a white hole, I don't know anything about it.
All I'm finding right now, I'm looking it up and I'm finding a lot of videos. So I don't want to play the videos yet because I don't know how long they are. There's a few that are saying finally it's a reality. But what I'm seeing is that who discovered a white hole? Australian physicist Ludwig Flamm researched Schwarzschild's solution and realized a second solution to Einstein's theory was possible, creating what would eventually be called a white hole.
Yeah, so essentially what that is that's looking at the mathematics of general relativity and saying this would be allowed. But again, just because something's allowed by that mathematics, there's a long way between allowed and exists. So whether they actually exist or not, I'm not 100% sure. And it's strange because there was an interesting article on space published in February. So space features are quite.
I'm not finding. I'm sorry. I'm not finding anything on what I would call like legitimate news sites. I'm seeing a lot of secondary sites claiming that they found a white hole, but I'm not seeing anything on your more mainstream news sites. Not yet, but this is something I'm going to write it down because I want to look into it a little bit more. White holes. Okay.
So there's an interesting article in Space. I'm going to pop it in the internal chat, a link to it. There's an interesting article on Space. Some quotes from Carlo Rovelli there, and that might be something it's worth looking at. Like I say, as far as I'm aware, we've not discovered any, but it's certainly a fascinating idea, especially that there's a universe somewhere where essentially all the matter that's gobbled up by black holes in our universe is kind of spat out at the other end of that universe. Would be fascinating, wouldn't it? But essentially that's all I know. They're just highly hypothetical.
Okay, I'm going to put that chat or that link that you posted in the chat room so everybody can take a look at that. And I'm going to save it for later. All right, so next question. I want to get through some of these because we're getting down. We're about 15 minutes to the end of the show. I know people love asking you questions. I'm having a ball. I'm learning so much. All right, Jay, what is the difference between multiple universes and string theory?
So, string theory suggests that the 3 dimensions of space that we're familiar with are actually a surface that's sat on a further 9 curled up dimensions. So it's necessary for string theory that there are other dimensions, but they'd be curled up within the dimensions of our universe as we see it.
Okay.
It's different than the idea of a multiverse, and it gets confused a lot because I think it's a non-Clementia thing. Because when we say hidden dimensions, we kind of think about the science fiction concept
Right.
of
Okay.
parallel universes or parallel dimensions. But really, when a string theorist says hidden dimensions, they're speaking about dimension in terms of your X, Y, and Z axis.
Okay.
And then curled up beneath that is other dimensions. Now, for string theory to be correct, those dimensions would have to exist.
Okay.
And also, what would be interesting about those curled up dimensions is it would explain why the force of gravity falls off so quickly, because the other fundamental forces are stronger. They're more powerful than gravity. Gravity is actually a fairly weak force. It's not unfortunate choice of terms because there is actually a weak force, but it'd kind of explain where gravity goes, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It'd be lost within those curled up dimensions, but it's very different from the idea of a multiverse.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Jay. Let's see what else we got here. Bob, do you think we will ever find any type of life, obviously bacterial, microbial, on Mars or any other moons of Jupiter or Saturn? I obviously don't think we will find human, animal, or plant life on other planets in our solar system.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd say the moons of Jupiter are a good shot.
Okay.
If we're going to find life elsewhere in the solar system, yeah, it'd be there. If we find anything on Mars, I don't think we'll find extant life. I think it will be the remains of life. I think we've got a chance of that on Mars, but I would go for Jupiter's moons, Saturn's moons, even further out, the moons of the more distant planets. These kind of ocean and ice worlds that would, I believe, would be more likely to host like very, very simple forms of life. So yeah, that would be where I'd put my money on.
This is more of based on the idea that they have oceans rather than Mars, which is dried up. For the most part.
Obviously, water is a kind of vital ingredient for life, but also the idea of an ice coverage underneath that ice. An ice coverage is really useful for protecting against harmful radiation that might destroy the kind of molecules that go on to form the building blocks of life.
Okay.
They're quite easily destroyed by radiation, which an ice shell would be really useful in kind of protecting those molecules long enough for it to start forming molecules that are large enough and robust enough not to be destroyed by radiation. So okay. I would say if we're going to discover life in the solar system, it would be the moons of Jupiter or Saturn that would be the best bets.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. All right. Only a couple more questions here. We got Redman. How do you think the Earth will end?
Well, it's on the cards. Roughly 5 billion years, the sun will enter a red giant phase. So what will happen is the sun will have exhausted all the hydrogen in its core. It essentially what happens is hydrogen's the fuel for the nuclear fusion processes that create helium, but it also provides energy. It provides radiative pressure, outwards that supports stars against the inward press of gravity.
Okay.
So essentially, the sun's core will just start collapsing under gravity. But as that happens, there'll still be nuclear fusion happening in the outer shells, and that drives out the outer shells. So the sun essentially swells up to a red giant, and its radius is estimated to approach about the orbit of Mars. So
Okay.
obviously, the inner planets like Earth are gone. I mean, what's interesting is we found evidence that there could be habitable zones around red giants, and even after the red giant phase, what happens then is those outer shells that have been shed become a planetary nebula, and what we're left with is this smouldering ball in the middle of it called a white dwarf. And we have found evidence that planets could sustain life around a white dwarf, but the habitable zone would be much closer. So, I mean, Earth will definitely be gone in 5 billion years or so. It's a certainty. What happens to Earth in between then? Well, that's in our hands, and you know,
Right.
Are we going to do something about it? Aren't we? Who can tell? How we will end is a
Right.
very different
Different.
prospect than how Earth will.
Hey, how we will end is very different from how the Earth will end.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Moving on. We got Rob. What is your favorite Marvel comic story?
Flash
Story. Yeah.
I
I did see you with an X-Men shirt.
I love the X-Men. Probably the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite Marvel storyline. I like Frank Miller's Daredevil. I was thinking the other day, it's interesting with comic book creators. Sometimes you have a comic book creator you don't like and a character you don't particularly like. But when they work with that character, there's just magic. And that's Frank Miller's Daredevil. It's that kind of magic. It's like lightning in a bottle. And the other one, John Byrne's Fantastic Four. Not a huge John Byrne fan, despite the fact he did great stuff on the X-Men, including the Dark Phoenix saga. But there's something about his Fantastic Four run that's just incredible. But my favorite comic book story of all time, check out Mark Waid's Flash run from the 1990s.
Yeah.
And he did a story called The Return of Barry Allen.
Yes.
And it's a fantastic story. It's about Wally West finally coming of age. And there's a lot of motifs about growing up and grief, because Wally West, for a long period, when he first began as the Flash, it was established that he was nowhere near as fast as Barry Allen. And it's revealed in that story that it's his grief that he knows as soon as he becomes as fast as Barry, well, he's replaced him and he's gone forever then.
Right.
And there are lovely little motifs of grief and loss in what is essentially a pretty simple superhero comic. So I really like that story. It's up there with, say, the Death of Gwen Stacy from Marvel, in my opinion. So
cool. All right, almost there. Let's see. We got Rob Palmer. I heard on the SGU, I think, that the estimates now say that there are more rogue planets than those in stellar orbits. Also, more stars outside of galaxies than in galaxies. Can you confirm?
I'm not 100% sure, Rob. I know the estimates of rogue planets are huge, and obviously it's a massively undiscovered population. But I'm not 100% sure whether it would be more than planets in orbit around a star. But SGU's normally well researched. I've got a lot of faith in the guys and gals that host that podcast. So, I mean, quite possibly. But then estimates, and we really wouldn't know that until we start getting a concept of the kind of numbers. And I don't think we've found enough yet to begin speculating about how many there are.
Right.
So it's possible. I mean, again, you've got such a vast amount of time for these planets just to be thrown out, and it's the vastness of space as well. So yeah, and with more stars outside galaxies, that's quite possible, because what you have is you have these massive intergalactic gas clouds, and that's where newborn stars, you know, they're often called stellar nurseries. So they can occur in gas that's in between galaxies. So it's quite possible. Again, the distances between galaxies are so great that I could accept that they're spread out so much that there are actually more in between those galaxies. Very possible, but again, not 100%, not 100% sure.
Cool. All right, last question. Follow-up question to Red Man. I think you kind of already answered this. Do you think humans, or humans as we currently know, will exist in 5 billion years?
I very much doubt it.
Yeah.
Very much doubt it. Just I mean, we've seen, with, even if we put our own quite destructive nature to one side, we've seen with COVID what happens when a virus mutates. And you know, really, science has completely saved our skin. And then there are ecological disasters, natural disasters. I would say our chances of lasting that 5 billion years are pretty slim, but who knows? Well, I doubt it. And then obviously there isn't much. You know, we need to focus a lot more on finding, you know, another planet to call home. And just the traveling distances, you know, of the next habitable world would just be, you know, obviously we could focus on terraforming Mars, but even Mars in 5 billion years is going to be gone when the sun hits the red giant phase. So I just don't think it's possible. But you know, I guess I'll never know if I'm wrong or not. It's kind of a long way.
Well, let's try to bring it up. Let's get this off here. Great questions tonight, everyone. We're gonna wrap up the show, but awesome. I mean, talking to you was so much fun. I mean, I love this discussion tonight, and this is one of the shows where I did very minimal prep work, because you have such a vast knowledge of this stuff now, and you've written extensively about black holes and exoplanets and stuff, that I just figured, you know what, we can just talk, we can have a discussion, and look at, we're 2 hours later, and it's been a really great night. I love it. I feel like a little kid in like a planetarium, just asking questions and getting answers, and it's been.
And so, you know, that's how science should make people feel.
Yes,
that's how science should make people feel. That's one of my problems with the paranormal is and mystical thinking, is the world is already incredible. There's already so many mysteries and so many wondrous things to learn, that actually I think sometimes the supernatural makes our universe a little bit smaller than it actually is. It actually diminishes wonder. I think sometimes. I think the idea of being spiritual, I think you can find a certain kind of spirituality in just the vastness of the universe, the intricacies of the laws that govern it, and how many things, just the wonder of the fact that, you know, we've looked beyond we've now sent a craft outside of our solar system. We're on the verge with the James Webb Space Telescope of looking at the earliest galaxies, looking at the conditions that existed just so shortly after the Big Bang that I think sometimes kind of supernatural thinking it makes us small.
Yeah.
And it's very parochial, and the idea that you'll go on forever when there's so much wonder out there, and we're so lucky to exist right now. At this point in human history, this point in our development of science, that we're learning all these wondrous things. We're so lucky to be here right now. And I just think sometimes mystical thinking makes that a little bit small.
I agree. I'm right there with you. It almost makes it feel like people just know everything already, and it takes the wonder out of it, you know. And like, I mean, your description right there was perfect. That's how I feel every time we talk about this subject. It's like there's so much out there, you know. There's so much more than 100 lifetimes could even scratch the surface.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm gonna put your website up that people can see. If you want to see more, all his articles, or I think most of your articles are up on there.
Just the good ones.
Just the good ones are up there. Please visit.
The stuff I wrote about big fish and spiders being found on people's dashboards. I don't put that on there.
It's a great site. I mean, the articles are great. I can get lost in there for hours. So please go visit. Where can people find you for more information other than here?
Go to Twitter. I'm at Science First with the I replaced with a 1. You can follow me on Facebook as well. Just search Rob Lea. And I'm always popping up on Physics World and Life Science and Space. Follow those places anyway. Just follow. Just follow them, because they're good science sites. Do they get everything right? Not always, but they're a good standard of science journalism. The editors at Physics World and Life Science, from working with them, they're so meticulous. They go over every detail. They're just great sites. So follow them, follow Popular Mechanics, and just, take 5 minutes out of your day, read about something wondrous. Even if you ignore 90% of the alerts that you get from them, that 10% could deliver just something absolutely mind-blowing.
Awesome. That's awesome. That's a great way to end. All right. So I'm going to pop up my little Squid Game Bob's announcements here. If you want to stick around, I'm just going to do my announcements real quick. So every Friday night I do this show. So come on back. Everyone that's watching, you're already locals, so you can come hang out. Saturdays, I do this awesome show with Tim Vickers, who has been in the background the entire show and done an excellent job. And our other friend, Dave Schumacher, we do a show called Three Tortured Souls, where we usually pick a topic and we science the shit out of it. Or we just discuss it. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about the God helmet. So I still have homework to do. Yeah, it's going to be
definitely
fun. Yeah. And then I do have some announcements. July 16th and 17th is the Skeptical virtual conference. It's online. It's the California Skeptics that do it. I'm going to be speaking on July 16th, mostly about my transition from ghost hunter to skeptical activist. So I'm going to tell about that story. July 23rd is the Para-Unity conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey. It's a Paracon. So I'm going to be the token skeptic, set up with my skeptical help booth. It'll look like my framing here. So if you're in the area, come out and find me. I'm going to have some toys, like little dowsing rod rigs and pendulum rigs and Ouija board stuff that you can play with, and it helps explain what's really going on.
That's awesome.
I love them toys. I absolutely love them. August 19th to 21st is the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to be joined by Tim Vickers and Dave Schumacher to Three Tortured Souls, which we do the show Saturday nights. We're going to be out there, and we're going to be there doing a show. We're going to do a show live from the conference, and we're also going to be there on hand to discuss and talk about things, and you can ask us questions and come hang out with us. So come on out. And then finally, October 20th to 23rd in Las Vegas, Nevada, I'll be out there for SciCon, which is the science conference put on by Skeptical Inquirer. And I'm going to be speaking Friday, I think at 3:00 on the main stage. And I'm going to be talking about bridging the gap between some believers and skeptics, how we can try to work together and be civil and stuff like that. I'm still working on it, but that's pretty much what I do. So come on out and hang out. Plus, it's Vegas. We're going to have fun. And then lastly, I want to give a shout out to all the patrons. So if you go up over that way, I almost did a Tim Vickers and pointed the wrong way. Over there, patreon.com/Kenny Biddle. If you like the show and you want to help support it a little bit, because it is supported by you guys, you can go there and sign up to be a member and I don't know what they call it, a subscriber every month. But check it out. I try to do as much behind the scenes stuff as I can. So if I'm working on videos or if I'm working on some projects, you guys get to know before everyone else does. So I post pictures and stuff that I don't post on social media and videos and stuff like that of what I'm doing behind the scenes. So thank you to everyone that's being named at the bottom. And with that, I think we're done here. And I want to thank you, Rob, for staying up late. I know it's really late over there. I appreciate it. And it was
No
really
problem.
good.
Anytime, Kenny.
It was good catching up with you and actually having a chat. I mean, I can't wait. Hopefully one day I'll get over there and we can meet and hang out in person. That would be great.
It would be great. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
All right.
Be really good. We'll go on a ghost hunt.
We will go on a ghost hunt together, and we will go undercover. No one will know. We'll just tag along and see what happens.
Well, if you can fool your man from what's his name? Zach.
Oh, Zach Baggins.
Yeah. If you can fool him. Was it him? His museum where he came out and didn't recognize it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You can feel him. You can feel anyone. So yeah,
it's
and
so
you weren't
easy.
even in disguise.
Well, I did have a mask on. So I had my COVID mask on, and I had eyeglasses on just because I can't read anything anymore because I'm getting too old. But yeah. I mean, I really did. I wanted to call him over because there was a little bet that if I could get a selfie with him, that I would win like a prize. But I just couldn't. We were going in as he was going out, and I just couldn't get his attention. So, oh well, maybe next time.
Yeah. You're not going back in that place. No, you've leaked him.
I'm not going back there anymore. There's no reason to go back there anymore. And like I'll like I said, I'm going to be on Squaring the Strange, and we're going to talk more about it in detail.
Oh, can't wait to hear it. Yeah,
there's no reason to go back there. All right, guys, I'm going to play our out video. Everyone have a great weekend, and remember, never stop learning. And I'll see you next week.